Welcome in to The Scoop, the number one UNC football recruiting podcast, brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt and Blue Shark Vodka. All right, welcome into The Scoop, the number one UNC recruiting podcast. I'm your host, Ross Martin, and joined by the recruiting guru, Don Callahan. What's up, Don?
I'm good. I'm wondering who's number two? Who's right behind us, chasing us for this number one spot?
I have no idea. I don't listen to other. A lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of sheep, so I don't
Gotcha.
listen to any other. I don't listen to
You
number
don't
two.
listen to any other UNC podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get into it. We got a packed show, a concise show. We planned it out. We were recording early on Wednesday morning, coming off on the beat last night, ended at 10 p.m. Now we are around 7:35 a.m. recording The Scoop. Of course, brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt, johnnytshirt.com. Check them out. Remember to use the 10% off discount code for all Inside Carolina subscribers, and Blue Shark Vodka, smoothest vodka in the world. We'll talk about both of them later in the show. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to the Inside Carolina Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts, and YouTube. We're doing so much more on YouTube. Cutting up clips from different podcasts, all the video interviews. John Bowman's doing a great job building that site, that channel. So make sure to subscribe to Inside Carolina YouTube, turn on the alerts when we go live, and of course get all our podcasts, all the press conferences, all this stuff on YouTube. Don's got some weird lighting going on right now.
Yeah,
sun's coming through.
Yeah, the sun's coming through the man tower right now. It's like literally right there. I need sunglasses. Literally right there.
There's nothing better when the sun hits the man tower. In Apex, North Carolina, coming through.
Holly Springs, North Carolina.
That's right.
God,
I get my Raleigh suburbs confused. I feel like I go through Apex to get there.
You do.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Here is the rundown. UNC got a commitment from Ty Adams on Sunday, cornerback out of Swainsboro, Georgia. We're going to talk about him. He joins UNC's 2023 class. UNC offered a running back, which is a little bit of news there. They had at one point decided not to recruit running backs, but apparently this Jordan Louie guy was too good to turn down. So they're recruiting and offered a running back in the 2023 class. As I pull up the football recruiting list, and then we're gonna get into kind of team stuff.
We're going to intertwine team and recruiting though. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah, and I want to get into also what else remains for UNC in 2023 as it kind of works into the Jordan Louie and a couple other names. Just a little update there, and then Don brought this up, and I think it's very valid, a very good conversation. How recruiting has affected UNC and why these high-ranked players are maybe not developed or not producing on the field in 2022. Don, you want to elaborate on that kind of topic?
Yeah, so I stole this idea from a question in the Ask Don thread. And basically, if you follow UNC recruiting, you know that really since Mack Brown came back to Chapel Hill, he's been able to sign a lot of really good players, put together a lot of really good classes. This class, not so great, but prior to this class, and a lot of that talent, a lot of four-star talent is on the defensive side of the ball. So trying to talk, and a lot of those guys are playing, but if you've watched UNC, the defense hasn't been very good. So where's the disconnect? Why aren't the recruiting results turning into on-field results?
Yeah, it's a very complex discussion, and there's like not an easy answer because we're not really in those rooms, in those practice rooms, in those meeting rooms on the field. And you said disconnect, and I think that's interesting because Mac used that word on Monday, not necessarily describing the recruiting, but just a little bit between the coaching and development and why it's not showing up on the field. And then finally, this is a question brought to me by a good buddy. He's on Twitter a lot, and he listens to our podcast, Michael Hardison. He messaged us last night and asked kind of a recruiting question about like the recruiting success of Mack Brown was built on kind of offering this playing time, the chance to build something, and the chance to come in and change the culture. Sam Howell, Drake May, all these stars come in and be the man and rebuild North Carolina. And so now, and I'm going to read this question when we get into it, like, now what are they selling? Can they still get those 4 and 5 stars? selling that hope, selling that future and stuff. So I think it's another kind of general question we can get into. I'm going to read the whole thing here so Don has a better idea of it when we get there. Okay, good, Don?
I am great.
All right, we're 5 minutes in. We have a hard out at 8:25, 8:30. We're going to make this very concise and very smooth. Let's get into it. Ty Adams commits to UNC. He becomes UNC's 19th commitment in the 2023 class. UNC's class is now ranked number 20 in the nation, number 20 in the composite, and they have 19 guys. Ty Adams, a 5'11", 175-pound cornerback out of Swainsboro, Georgia. He is ranked in the 24/7 Sports composite rankings. He got a little jump, it looks like, maybe. 1,265th player, 119th cornerback, and the 119th player in Georgia.
You're probably looking at, hold on, let me pull up the actual, so that they shifted. Oh, no. Oh, he did get a jump. Like the jump, I don't know. This is a 247 thing. If you go to his profile, it's different than if you go to any of the profile cards that are any of the stories.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, he's outside the top 1,200. Let's say that. But I am seeing a little jump here. Who knows what happened there? Don, let's go into his recruitment briefly. It seemed pretty basic. Let's get to that. Then I want to ask you about him as a player and a couple other questions about Ty Adams.
Okay, so in June, he took an official visit to East Carolina and committed to the Pirates. Felt set there. That's the direction he was going to go. He was going to be a Pirate. Then in I guess it was mid-August, North Carolina offers him, and I could tell immediately talking to him that he wanted to, pun intended, jump ship immediately. But obviously wanted to kind of go through the process before actually doing so. So he visited North Carolina, his inaugural visit to North Carolina for the home opener against Florida A&M, and then scheduled his official visit for the very next home game, which was this past weekend's game against Notre Dame. Just a little bit of, I guess, behind the scenes thing, which I probably should have included in the weekly scoop, and just kind of slipped my mind. I don't know how it would fit, but anyway, I get a text from him Saturday night, about 11:30, saying, "Hey, be prepared for a commitment switch." Mm-hmm. So I said, "Okay, just let me know what the plan is." And he texted me Sunday morning, said, "Hey, here's the deal. I'm still here. I'm going to meet with Mac. I'm going to call you afterwards." But his initial plan was he was going to decommit on Sunday and then commit to North Carolina on Monday. So anyway, so he calls me on Sunday at 7 and says, "Hey, did it, decommitted." And I was like, "All right, when are you going to post everything?" He said, "Well, I'm going to post a decommitment right when I get the phone with you, and then I'm going to post a commitment at 6 on Monday." So then I see that he tweeted. I just kind of assumed that it was just a decommitment. I get a call from Ben Sherman saying, "What's the deal here? Yeah, this kid just committed, and we have nothing up." So I was a little ill prepared because the kid changed the plan on me at the last moment and decommitted and committed at the same time on Sunday night, which was fine because we already had everything already. It was just a matter of,
yeah,
I'm in bed, I'm getting my beauty rest. You know what I mean? So I had to hop out of bed and handle things.
Yeah. All right. So committed to East Carolina June 19th. Then UNC offered and committed to UNC on September 25th. Is this just a matter of Power 5 school, a little better opportunity for him?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I think fans think that if North Carolina has a need, that they're all of a sudden going to go out to the 4-star tree and pluck a prospect off that tree, or steal someone from somewhere, another Power 5 school. In reality, a lot of what happens is there is no more 4-stars. Or either, if they're not committed somewhere else, they have a very finite list of schools that they're looking at, that they're focused on, and it's very difficult to get into that race this late in the process. So you kind of have to go down the food chain, and that's what North Carolina did. And stole at least one DB from East Carolina, is trying to steal a second. Aiden Duncanson, I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit later on.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because UNC's missed on a couple cornerbacks, right? I'm trying to, the names escape me. Who they've missed on? Do you remember?
So there's Braden.
Yes. Okay.
God, now I'm going blank on the kid from Central Florida, two kids from Central Florida, and then
The one
God,
guy.
why the one that Clemson offered at the very end, and he ended up going there also.
Yeah. We'll look it up.
Um,
Look it up during the break. But yeah. All right. So they got Ty Adams here. He gives UNC how many cornerbacks now?
three DB commits.
Three DB commits and look, good length, 5'11", good speed, 175 weight. What does he bring to the quarterback position as we wrap up this part of the podcast?
Yeah, all right. So the guys, just to kind of get it out there, Shelton Lewis was the kid who was set for North Carolina. Clemson offered very at the end, and then he ended up committing to Clemson. Braden Marshall was a kid who didn't list UCF in his finalists and ends up staying home and choosing UCF. And then the last guy was Zach Toby, who was committed to North Carolina, and then Illinois came in, and there's some NIL stuff going on there, and he ended up flipping to Illinois. But to answer your question, what does Ty Adams bring to North Carolina? He's kind of a throwback recruit. And what I mean by that is when I first started, way back when there was leather helmets, typically when you were looking for DBs, this sun is killing me. How is it? Is it really bad on the
Like you look completely white on one side and then like very shiny white and then completely dark on the other side.
Okay.
You look
All right.
like the
It is.
Phantom of the Opera or something.
Yeah. Well, it is brutal right now. Anyway, so what I mean by throwback recruit is that typically back in the day when you would recruit or try to find DBs, you would go to a school and kind of a school that would play their best athlete at the quarterback position. And that's what Ty Adams is. He plays for Swansboro, plays quarterback mostly, does play some defensive back, but he's a raw athlete who has the speed, has the hip movement, has the ball skills, has the playmaking ability to play defensive back. But most of his experience on the high school level is at the quarterback position in a running quarterback situation. He's not a passer at all. He is, he probably throws like 2-3 times a game. So he's a little bit raw. So he's going to take some time to actually make an impact on North Carolina's roster. But he has the speed. He has the playmaking ability for sure.
Yeah, so high school quarterback, we'll have to learn the position coming to Carolina, and so that's definitely a development process, a lot of technique stuff. Ty Adams commits to UNC, becomes the 19th commitment in this class. All right, let's move on. UNC offered a running back, Jordan Louie, a West Virginia commitment, 5'11", 205, out of Meadow Creek High School in Norcross, Georgia, Atlanta suburb. 756 ranked guy in the 24/7 Sports Composite, number 51 running back, number 74th player in Georgia. He's kind of blown up this fall after, I guess, some good video, good tape coming out of his fall season. What's going on with UNC's running back recruitment, and more specifically, what's going on with Jordan Louie and UNC?
So back in the spring, we actually mentioned a few times in some weekly scoops as a guy that the staff kind of had their eye on, really liked his film. He's a compact guy with some surprising wiggle to him, but some good power to him. Also, definitely kind of, we're always throwing around the Javonte Williams comparisons to the point where it's almost meaningless, but he kind of fits that sort of compact, powerful, but elusive mold sort of thing. But anyway, so communication with him kind of continued, and then really started to come to a point where North Carolina felt like, hey, yes, we do not need a running back, but this kid is really putting up killer numbers. He plays in the Atlanta area, which is one of the most competitive areas in the nation for high school football. And in 3 of his 5 games this season, he's rushed for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. The other 2 games are 100-plus yard rushing outings. Putting up those numbers against that competition, you can't ignore. Georgia is also kind of talking to him. They have an offer, but they bring him. They're kind of doing, Georgia and Florida State are doing what North Carolina has already done, in that bringing him to campus, kind of getting a feel for him, talking to him, seeing him in person, those sort of things, and then kind of going from there. I asked Rusty Manziel just where, because obviously he's an in-state kid for Georgia, where UGA sees him, and his comment to me was, well, he's moved up significantly on their board. So this is a kid with his stock is rising, and North Carolina obviously wants to kind of seize on that.
Okay, so what? I mean, he's committed to West Virginia.
Committed to West Virginia, yes.
He visited UNC this weekend, right?
This past weekend, that's when he was offered, yes.
And I was reading your article. It looks like he wants to kind of visit other places and take this into December and maybe even February. How do you see this going? Is it a flip situation? Is it wait and see on Georgia, Florida State, some of the bigger, more national programs? How do you see it breaking down for Jordan Louie?
So a lot's going to depend on these next few weeks and who ends up offering him. I think it's North Carolina has talked to him. Do you have a question?
Where is he visiting again? Florida State.
So this week he's going to Florida State. Next weekend he's going to Georgia.
Okay.
And there's always the possibility of other schools. Actually, I expect other schools to kind of jump in there too for him. But North Carolina has begun to talk to him about official visits. I think it's very smart that they're talking about December official visits with him, because he's probably going to sign and decide in December. And we talked about this all summer about just the timing of official visits, how key that is. Mm-hmm. And so to make sure that you get one of those final official visits, if not the final official visit, is key for North Carolina. So we have a long ways to go with this, but I think North Carolina is playing this pretty well.
All right, Jordan Louie. I just pulled up his offer list. 5'11", 205 out of Georgia. Pretty interesting recruitment to follow. And of course, things change in the fall. We're seeing that now. And, who knows, there may be a couple other guys UNC reaches out to as they get more tape and the fall season continues. On that note, Don, before we get into ads here, what else remains for UNC in the 2023 class?
So really there's only three guys that have offers that haven't committed anywhere. And that's Aiden Duncanson, who I mentioned briefly earlier. He's a defensive back from Georgia, also teammate of UNC commit Caleb Lavalley, currently committed to East Carolina. Then there's Davon Hobbs, which we haven't really talked about a whole lot recently because for North Carolina's purposes, not a whole lot of positive movement there. And then we just talked about Jordan Louie. And it's really at the point where whatever North Carolina can get from these guys and any additional guys who will emerge, I'm not saying some will, but there's always that potential. A week ago, I probably wouldn't have expected Louie to get an offer. But for the most part, it's seeing what happens with these guys and then kind of plugging the remaining holes through the transfer portal.
Okay. This actually leads into a great question. So needs are what? Cornerback and defensive line?
So needs are offensive line.
Okay.
And DB. Those are probably, I would say, the needs.
Okay. We talked about this a little bit last night. I mentioned, I think it was an answer to a question with recruiting. Is there a concerted effort to move to taking a little bit less and then waiting and seeing who's in the transfer portal? Like, is that the kind of new wave that UNC is getting into of like, look, let's not take 5 more kids. Let's take 5 more transfers in January or May and build our roster that way. Get a guy who has 2 years eligibility, even 1 year eligibility, somewhere from Alabama, Georgia, another school, LSU, somewhere that they need more. They want more playing time in their second string, but a high-ranked kid. Are you seeing that trend for UNC? And obviously it's a trend for a lot of other schools as well.
Yeah, so I think you're just from my conversation, because we haven't seen any actions yet. And there's still, we talked about in the last podcast, the changes to the transfer portal and just how that's affecting things. Talking to sources, what it feels like is that you're starting towards the end of a cycle, you're getting into to immediate need and long-term needs. Mm-hmm. And so obviously immediate needs would be, transfer portal situation. And so I think what North Carolina is realizing at DB and offensive line, because if you remember, they wanted to sign more DBs than what they have committed right now, and more offensive linemen than what they have committed right now. But they're starting to realize, hey, it's great to get these high school kids in, but they're not going to be able to contribute immediately, and we need the help next season, sort of thing. And so let's try the transfer portal. And it's going to be really, for me, really interesting because yes, North Carolina's had some success in the transfer portal, but there's been a lot of um, attempts to fill potential needs at the transfer portal that have been unfulfilled.
Yeah, and I think all the points you said are great and valid. Like, you saw the success. They needed a pass rusher. They got Noah Taylor, who's been pretty good. They needed a center. They went out and got a great center that's been a huge fill of a need. Like, without Corey Gaynor, like, I think there'd be a lot more issues on the offensive line. They got a good utility offensive lineman and Spencer Rowland, who started as well. So instead of waiting for a freshman, a redshirt freshman, even a sophomore to develop, get a guy who's been in a college program ready for 3 years, has the strength and conditioning down, who just needs a chance. Maybe, he's just not playing enough, wants a new start. Go and get him and then plug him in for 1 year, 2 years. You're seeing that success, and it changes recruiting so much. I think UNC could use a safety. It just get a little more talent at safety, at corner. Running back, they're good. Wide receiver, they're good. O-line, I think you could always go in and get just a little bit more experience and depth in offensive line. D-line, like, why not go in the positions that you have a little questions about who's going to start, or you need a little depth, go in and get a transfer. Like, why not? So I think we'll see that a lot more. I think that's the way recruiting is going across the nation. I know it's a little bit difficult for UNC to get some players in. I think it's easier if they're not grad transfers, correct?
It's easier if they are grad transfers.
Well, aren't there some programs like it's very tough to get into for grad students?
So that's, yeah. You're right about that. But if you look at the guys that North Carolina was, like Noah Taylor, Gaynor, and Spencer Rolland, those are all graduate transfers. And if you look at some of the other ones who've come in recently, there have been grad transfers. It is difficult to qualify for those
grad programs,
but it's also difficult to have enough credits and have the GPA for a undergraduate student to transfer to North Carolina, which is something Mac Brown's going to have to work on with admissions department.
Yeah, dude, your lighting is awful right now.
Is it? Like, do you want me to? I can close the blinds and turn the light on. I don't know if it.
Let's try that.
Okay,
I'm going to talk right now. We got Don Callahan. Don't cut this, Don Callahan. I saw him wearing some nice basketball shorts. He's going to close the blinds and turn a light on. I don't know why he didn't have a light on before. Seems like it'd be natural to have a light on. There you go. Don Callahan, big time Philly fan. Not cargo shorts today. Surprisingly, is wearing a Flyers jersey. Okay. All right, we're back. You good? That's much better. Why would you not have the light on initially?
I actually did not turn the light on.
That's I know, but why not? Oh, you didn't turn the light on.
I didn't turn the light. All I did was close the blinds.
So why is it lighter?
Probably because the lighting is not directly at one spot and kind of moving. I mean, literally the sun, like, I should have had sunglasses on. Like, I probably burnt my left retina, because it was like literally right there.
Mm-hmm. Hey, if the sun's so hot, why is space cold?
I know that there's like a reason for that, because that's like like a TikTok question or whatever. But I don't know. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
All right, someone just walk through the video. All right, let's get into Johnny T-shirt, johnnytshirt.com, your one-stop shop for everything you need UNC apparel-wise. Got basketball season coming up. Get a football jersey, shirt, sweatshirts, crew neck sweatshirts, hooded sweatshirts. It's getting a little cool outside. Hats, everything you need. Johnny T-shirt and johnnytshirt.com. Guys, it's important to support and help out independent local companies like Johnny T-shirt, like Inside Carolina. It's good synergy. We're working together. So head to johnnytshirt.com or stop by their store on Franklin Street and get everything you need for UNC. Tell them Inside Carolina sent you. And if you are an Inside Carolina subscriber, use the 10% off discount code to get 10% off your order. It makes a difference on large orders, $100, $200. Get all your shopping done for the holidays. Johnny T-shirt and johnnytshirt.com. I want to thank them for the support. And I also want to mention here, Blue Shark Vodka. They sponsor Calling the Shots. They sponsor On the Beat. Blue Shark Vodka, the smoothest vodka in the world. Shout out to the company based in Wrightsville, Connor Barth, a local independent vodka company, helping us out, supporting us, and just helping what we do inside Carolina, bring you all these podcasts. Couple national ads, and we'll be back to discuss kind of broader recruiting issues, development issues, how that affects recruiting as we get into kind of the mesh point between recruiting and team stuff here on The Scoop, brought to you by Inside Carolina. All right, we are back. Don, what's going on?
Not too much. If you want to know why there's been traffic behind me, I'm still dealing with the refrigerator being broken.
Jeez, what's going on there?
So they came out and fixed it, and then it didn't work. And so called them, and whatever the part they put in was a bad part. And I have to wait until next week for them to have the new part and to put that in. So we're just dealing with the little Mantower fridge.
The fridge in your downstairs kitchen doesn't work.
Does not work. Has not worked for I think it's been over a month now.
And so like milk, anything cold is in your little
the Mantower next to the beer.
Dorm fridge.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. What about the freezer?
So it does have a freezer, but it's one of those like really skinny ones that's meant for pizza only.
But the freezer doesn't work downstairs either?
No.
Golly.
Yeah. So we basically go to the grocery store like every other day because, Yeah.
All right, let's get into it, Dom. You want to talk about this.
You always blame it on me.
Why there is a little bit of disconnect between the rankings in recruiting and the prospects UNC's landed versus production on the field in 2022. And, not to call people out, but look, there's been some 5 stars, 4 stars on the defensive line, throughout the roster that just the rankings. UNC's had like the number 15, top 20 recruiting classes now for almost 3-4 seasons, and their defense is ranked number 123 in the nation. So there's almost like a 90-point difference in recruiting ranking versus the defensive ranking. What's going on, Dean? How do you want to start this, Don? And let's get into it.
So I think that the basis of it is that I forget how the question was phrased to me, but basically, why aren't these rankings producing on the field? And I feel like there's 3 potential reasons, or maybe a combination of these 3. One, those guys were overrated,
Mm-hmm.
but if they're overrated, it's obviously on those who do the rankings, but it's also on North Carolina and all the other schools that offer these guys. Very rarely do you see a guy highly ranked. Actually, you never see a guy highly ranked who doesn't have a gazillion offers.
So, yeah. So it's on the ranking, but like it's on the coaching staff.
It's on the coaching staff. Specifically, nowadays, you have almost kind of like a separate sort of scouting department. It's not completely a separate scouting department, but there are people whose job is almost exclusively to watch high school film and to help make decisions for recruiting purposes. The second potential reason is a lack of development. And for me, I define that as strength and conditioning, nutrition, anything else off the field, but also I consider fundamental coaching as part of it, as part of that development. Because I think there's key things that these freshmen, for example, who aren't playing, that are supposed to be picking up in practice, that's going to help them in future years. The third item is coaching, mostly like scheme and putting the players in the right position. We have seen, whether we realize or not, tons of guys who have actually played better or produced more than what their talent level is because they're put in an ideal situation for their skill set, or they're highlighted, or the scheme is just so, a system that seems to work for a quarterback, a receiver, particular defensive players, that sort of thing. It's why there's guys who have great college careers and just are complete busts in the NFL because they're in a college system that really kind of shines for them. So I guess my question to you, And I know we're so limited. You guys don't get to go to practices. You get what? How many practices did you guys go to? One, two?
The first and second practice. Second one was a scrimmage.
Yeah. So you got to go to two practices. You don't get to see the workouts and all that sort of stuff. Um, I think that because we're dealing with such a large number of recruits that are highly ranked, statistically speaking, it's difficult to say all of them are overrated. I mean, do you think that's fair to say? I mean, could North Carolina, however many of these guys, just
Yeah.
all of them are overrated? I just don't think that's possible.
Yeah, I don't think you miss on everyone, or
Yeah,
even a majority of the one. But
and a lot of these guys they weren't like 4 stars that people stopped recruiting. They were 4 stars that Clemson stayed on for a long period of time, that Georgia stayed on, and that sort of. They were guys who were highly coveted.
yeah,
So I don't think. I mean, yeah, there are probably situations where some of these guys are just plain busts that didn't deserve the ranking. But I think much more likely it's either in the development or it's something to do with the scheme or the game day coaching sort of thing.
yeah. Okay, I really like how you lay that out, and it gives us a good kind of blueprint to talk about this. The three things you said, and look, off the top, and Don said it, like, dude, I have no idea how these guys are being developed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have no idea what goes on during practice other than what the coaches and players tell us, which
Mm-hmm.
is obviously going to be biased.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what goes on in the meeting rooms in terms of how they're learning scheme and learning fundamentals and watching tape and improving. I have no idea about truly how good the strength conditioning is, good or bad, what the nutrition is like, how it compares to other programs, what the standard is. Like, I've never been on a staff, so I don't know exactly what to look for. And look, I have no idea if the strength conditioning is the issue or not. I mean, it easily could be, easily could not be. Same thing with nutrition. And so that I want to say off the top, like, we're discussing this. You have to be careful discussing this from a point of a lot of lack of knowledge
Yeah.
and lack of just, we don't know. And it's not really our fault. It's just like, we just don't know. So we got to be careful when we talk about this, because we don't want to place blame on people where there's not blame. Overrated part. Yeah, I mean, there's gonna be tons of kids that are overrated. You're ranking, thousands of kids. There's gonna be misses. There's gonna be rankings that are skewed based on size, based on playing against really good talent, or versus not very good talent. There's gonna be just misses on. I think a lot of it is mentality and kind of the mental makeup of players. Sometimes, like, you see a freak athlete who dominates a smaller player, or just is really dominant against lesser teams, but doesn't have that mentality to come into college and work hard and improve. And when he goes against players that are just as good as him, he's not as good because he didn't have that drive. He didn't have
Mm-hmm.
that work ethic. He didn't have
Yes.
that dog in him. So you have to recruit the physical traits and what you see on tape, and the speed and the talent and the size and length and whatever. But I think recruiting the person is just as important at the college level, because you need someone who can handle college, who can work hard, who can get better, who wants to get better, who's motivated to get better and has that drive, but then brings it on the field in terms of, like, just being a dog. Like, some players don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
I think recruiting that side of the person is super important. Like, get to know the player and talk to their coaches, talk to everybody around them, and see if, like, is this guy love football? Does he want to get better? What are his goals? How does he work? Compared to someone who maybe it was easy for him and won't
Mm-hmm.
be as motivated once he gets to college. I think that is
Mm-hmm.
worthy of discussion there. And then a lot of this on if they're missing on recruits, that's on the staff on evaluating. You're
Yeah.
obviously, and that goes along with what I just said, but, like, evaluating, like, is this kid really a 4-star? Is he really a 5-star? Is he really one of the most elite defensive ends in the country? Is he really an elite defensive tackle, or is he just dominating? And there's so you got to do. There's a lot of scouting, and that's where you miss. Like, don't just take a kid because he's 6'6", 310. But if he doesn't, if you don't think he can produce at the college level, then don't take him. And you're seeing some of that. And so I think it's a tough job because the rankings are shiny and bright
Mm-hmm.
and they look great. It looks great on the recruiting classes, but maybe
Mm-hmm.
that 3-star is better. And you see that all the time. You see
Yeah.
some of the 3-stars be better than a 4-star, 5-star, and sometimes, and that goes down to the scouting department on campus and within the program. Anything to add on that? That's
Yeah, so I
the
think
one. That's the number one topic you talked about.
yeah, I think I mean everything you said is 100% right. I agree 100% with the stuff you said about the some players it was just so easy for them because they were physically bigger, faster, and they can kind of get by with just those traits. The other thing I'll say, kind of just to piggyback on what you ended with, is that human nature does play into this. This is an art, not a science. And if a kid has a 4-star rating, yes, you are making those evaluations, but it's hard in the back of your head to be, with that 4-star in the back of your head, and you see a kid and you're like, oh, he's not very good. It's hard to say, yeah, we shouldn't recruit him. I get that he's in state. I get that he's a 4-star, but I just don't like what I see on film. And some of that stuff is difficult to do too. But anyway, that's kind of getting a little bit off topic. The development stuff, I guess, is the next thing.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think this is obviously there's a lot of interest here. The strength conditioning, we talk about that. Nutrition, I don't know. I don't know if that's the issue.
There's no way to measure it.
It easily could be. If they're getting pushed around, if 4 and 5 stars are getting pushed around by Notre Dame's 4 and 5 stars.
But here's the thing, and this is what kind of irritated me a little bit. Mac Brown brought that up a lot with Notre Dame, but didn't bring it up when North Carolina kind of got pushed around by the other 3 schools that they played, who recruit outside of the top 75. And I mean, Florida A&M and App State and Georgia State. I mean, they moved the ball with ease against North Carolina's defense. And the thing was, and I got to give Ross, I've been giving you a lot of praise when I talked to Ben recently, because the media that covers UNC, and some of this is just because there's not a whole lot of media left.
Here we go.
They're so soft. They really are. The questions are so soft. They just want to do their job and get out of there. But you have asked some hard questions, particularly on Monday, and I appreciate that, because one of the things I think, and I'm paraphrasing and maybe I heard it wrong, was I think one of your questions was, hey, I get the fact that Notre Dame has all these blue chip guys on their offense, but North Carolina has a bunch of highly ranked guys on their defense. Why was the disconnect? Because I really should have probably done the research, but I'm willing to bet that the defense at North Carolina fielded from a recruiting ranking standpoint, the offense that Notre Dame fielded, I'm willing to bet it's pretty similar. Like, there's not this huge discrepancy.
Yeah. They did look, the defensive line looked, Notre Dame's defensive line looked bigger and better and faster and stronger. And look, they've been recruiting this way for a long time. I get Mac's argument. It is a little bit of an excuse because UNC's been recruiting well too. I think Notre Dame's defensive line versus UNC's offensive line, there was a discrepancy there. But
that wasn't the problem on Saturday.
What was it?
The problem was UNC's defense, which has the talent, and Notre Dame's offense.
Yeah. And then So all right. So back to the development. Yeah. I mean, I think. Yeah. I mean, look, Travis Shaw, Jahvaree Ritzie, Keyshawn Silver, Des Evans, Reva Hasek, obviously not a huge recruit. Like, those guys are big. They're highly talented. So why aren't they? Why isn't that Miles Murphy? Why isn't that crew being able to compete with the offensive line of Notre Dame? Lack of development, strength conditioning, nutrition, coaching fundamentals. Like, I think there's a little disconnect between why is the development not there? Like, Miles Murphy, Jahvaree Ritzie, Des Evans, like, they should be, I think,
and I know I'm putting you on the spot, and there's a lot of things you don't know. Do you think the development is not there?
Yeah, I think you have to say that with the development of some of the defensive positions. Like, I just think, like, what else could it be? Like, they aren't as good as their ranking suggests, and it's not experienced now. Like, Miles Murphy's a junior, Richard's a redshirt freshman, Desmond Evans, and I shouldn't be calling out these guys particularly because it's not just them. It's a lot of other players, but
it feels like most of the players on the defense have made a huge mistake, sometime this season.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is awful, Don. So I think there's definitely. I mean, look, there's a huge lack of development over the last 4 years of these players, and some of these coaches have been on the staff for 4 years. So at some point, it's like, dude, why aren't these kids getting better as a unit too? Like, why isn't the defensive line getting better? It's regressed. They should be better. Like, they didn't lose anybody on the defensive line.
No.
They didn't lose anybody on the defensive line. It should be better.
What is
And
supposed to be better, supposedly Jay Bateman was the problem. You get rid of Jay Bateman and the defense. And I asked you this question last time. I'm going to ask you again. Is the defense better or worse
it
than
is
last year?
worse. And look, they've gone against App State, Florida A&M, and
Yeah.
Georgia State.
Crappy competition.
Yeah,
I get
and,
Notre
look,
Dame, but
Notre Dame. Look, they're going to struggle against teams like Notre Dame, but yeah, they've gotten worse against crappier competition. And so why? That's weird. That it's gotten worse. And I think the quarterbacks. Look, I'm not an X nose guy, and like I want to be very careful here. The cornerbacks too. Like, why are they still missing assignments? Why are these players missing gaps? And why is there a disconnect with the scheme? Like that's coaching and fundamentals and somehow how the teaching from the coach's mouth to the player's ear. Why aren't they doing and making so many mistakes? It's that 1 of 11 thing they always talk about, like one guy not doing his job. Like why isn't that one player doing his job?
I don't even, so that's what they've said, but like particularly against Georgia State, who has probably the worst quarterback I've ever seen at this level. Terrible. Has no idea about putting touch on the ball, is so inaccurate. And the only reason why he connected with guys because they were so wide open, and he actually missed a bunch of wide open guys thrown over their heads. But when guys are so incredibly wide open, that's not just one guy making a mistake. That's just not.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing a zone, there's other people. I mean, like some of these guys, I'm watching on TV. A quarterback drops back and then he throws the pass, and you see there's no UNC guys in the screen. That's not a.
That's a little bit of a scheme. Not getting pressure on the quarterback, and not having press coverage. Like they are running wide open in the first 3 games, like across the field, even with Michael Mayer against Notre Dame. Like so, I don't know. I think there's a lack of talent at safety.
Mm-hmm.
I think they do miss Ja'Qurious Conley. Like they're playing the same 4 and 5 guys. They're bringing in Will Hardy some, but like I think Conley, even though he's more of kind of inside the box guy, they could have used that against Notre Dame. Like they need his physicality, and he's out obviously with a knee injury. We don't know his return, but there's just that goes back to recruiting and building depth. There's just a little bit of a lack of talent, and some of these 5 stars, Tony Grimes, Storm Duck, like they haven't had the best season. I think they know that. I feel like I'm not saying anything that's crazy. So they're just
there's no playmaker on the defense. There's no one making plays.
Yeah, like they forced one. I think they forced 1 turnover.
Yeah, so they're not only getting beaten down, regardless, and like not everyone. There are some people who are like, oh, the secondary looked better. The secondary to me didn't. How do you know the secondary looked better against Notre Dame? Notre Dame didn't really have to throw the ball. And the few times they did, they made plays. But really, Notre Dame was like, all right, the way we beat North Carolina is to get a lead and just completely run and run and run and run.
They couldn't stop the run.
Yes. And then that not only gets the yards and scores the points, but it kills the clock to keep because Notre Dame knew they didn't want to get into a shootout with North Carolina because of Drake May, which is
keep the ball away from him. That's what they did, and they could not stop the run. Don watches a lot of football here, guys. So he actually, you do have a lot of knowledge about the actual game. What do you think about?
Oh boy,
like they rushed 4, they brought 5 sometimes, and they're dropping 7 or dropping 6. Like when Notre Dame is running the ball, 12 straight runs, like 7 yards, 8 yards, 15 yards. Like, do you just load the box up and dare them to throw? Like at some point, you gotta be like, we got to stop this run. We need to bring 8 guys in the box, bring your jumbo package. Like, what's your philosophy on like that aspect of moving people into the box versus dropping in coverage?
Yeah. So, I mean, what you want, the logical step to think about is to put guys in the box. But the reason why you don't have them in the box because they're so afraid of getting beat deep. And Coach Chizik and Coach Warren, they are just like, all right, we can handle these, what felt like 7-yard gains every rush, as long as we're not giving up these deep passes. Mm-hmm. And that's what it felt like, was that they didn't want the deep pass. Notre Dame was like, okay, fine, no big deal. So it's so hard once an offense can kill you with one thing. It's hard because then once you try to stop that one thing, then you open up the other, and then you're just on skates, and then it's just an impossible situation. I mean, I think that that it's clear, at least against Notre Dame, that they felt like even though Pine is not a good quarterback, although he might be one of the better quarterbacks that they faced, but he's not a good quarterback. They did not want to get beat deep by Pine.
Yeah, well, they got beat. A death by 1,000 knives or whatever it's called. I mean, it was death by something like that. Yeah, we need to move on, but I kind of worry about teams now have kind of the blueprint.
Well, that's what. So, all right, before we completely move on, so I've watched 2 full games of Virginia Tech. I watched the ODU game and I watched the West Virginia game.
Mm-hmm.
Their offense is terrible, right?
Well, so was Notre Dame's, right?
Well, that's yeah. And
I mean, that's what you worry about. Like, Notre Dame sucks. Like the quarterback sucks. Like they destroyed UNC.
Well, that's what I had the conversation with Tyler right before kickoff, and we were kind of talking about what we thought was going to happen. And I told him, I was like, look, yeah, Notre Dame stinks, but their defense is actually pretty good, and they contained Ohio State. Mm-hmm. So all they have to do is just have a decent game, and UNC's defense typically allows that. So that's my thing, and I guess I'm asking you, although I know that you're not going to be the answer, but like Virginia Tech's offense, particularly their passing offense, Grant Wells looks like crap. And just is not a playmaker. I wouldn't even call him like I don't know. I mean, he's just a guy out there. He's like Ross Martin out there. But that Georgia State quarterback was terrible.
Yeah.
What do you expect from Virginia Tech?
I mean,
clearly inferior.
I think it's a great chance, a great opportunity for UNC's defense to get some confidence and see what works, get after the quarterback, make some plays. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't look on paper, doesn't like Virginia Tech's that good. So it's an opportunity. I mean, I think it's a good chance. I mean, it's set up for UNC to win a lot of games still. The offense is so good. Like Drake is so good.
Well, that's the thing.
The defense can improve and like, dude, they're saying all the right things. And look, Gene Chizik is not the issue, I don't think. Obviously, it's responsible. He's responsible for it, but like I think he is a above average coach that knows what he's doing. It's just he's got to get these guys in line and get a little bit better, and maybe switch up a couple things.
Well, but the one thing, if you remember, he has this reputation of a bend don't break. Mm-hmm. And it works. It worked in the past because it never broke. It just his defense would just bend. But it feels like against Notre Dame, it was break. I mean, do you feel like that's some of it where it's because what you were laying out with dropping everybody and just kind of allowing the short passes, that's kind of a bend don't break mentality.
Yeah. Everything in front of you.
Yeah.
Don't press coverage.
Don't allow the big play.
Yeah. And then we miss tackles. That's when it happens there. So yeah, I would like to see a little bit of a little bit more pressure in terms of blitz packages, a little bit more press coverage of the cornerbacks, and just step it up. All right, we have a couple minutes here before we get out of here. I think we kind of hit on your third thing about coaching and scheme and putting players in the right position to be successful. I mean, like Rod Dilworth, for example, he's on the field, he's getting destroyed by Notre Dame's offensive lineman. Like he's going to get destroyed by Notre Dame's offensive lineman. Like he's a small defender. Like maybe put out a bigger linebacker against an offensive line like Notre Dame. I don't know. So I think,
use him differently. Use him more in the third level. I mean, that goes back to the putting guys in the best position to succeed.
Yeah. I mean, like maybe he could be some guy that is some safety linebacker hybrid that can track the quarterback and get the angles right. From a little bit back in the linebacker position. Who knows?
Or like what you were saying, where instead of dropping 7, you have him come in as like a almost like a DB, but he's providing more run support because that's obviously his thing. I mean, something along those lines might end up being helpful. Just outside the box sort of thinking.
Yeah, there got to be some changes because the blueprint's out there and it's not working. So teams are going to see that and try to do the exact same thing. So you got to give them some different looks. All right, let me ask you this question real quick. We'll get out of here. It's from Michael Harrison. I'm going to read the whole thing. Since Mac came back to Chapel Hill and tried to kickstart our recruiting, part of his approach has been to highlight building from the ground up. Like come in, change things, build this program. You've heard this from players, recruits repeatedly. I want to build something, a chance to compete and play immediately. Sometimes that's worked. Sam Howell, Drake May, Amar Hampton. But defensively, has UNC attracted 4 and 5 stars that thought playing time was basically guaranteed? The long and short of it, are we attracting 5 stars that think they can walk in and run the place? because Mac has stressed so much he wants to build something and therefore aren't as willing to put in the work?
That's a very, very interesting question that I've never really thought about.
Like, you think, I guess the point is, like, these guys come in and think they have already kind of got it
Arrived.
made, arrived. Like
Yeah.
I should be playing, starting. I don't have to put in the work because I was so good as a recruit, and Maxwell's going to start, and here I am starting, and I don't have to get much. I don't know. Is that it's kind of a weird perspective?
Yeah, I never thought of it like that. I don't think that's an issue. Because really, I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's an issue. Um, but I mean, it's one of those things where I don't know. I'm not around those kids. Um, and I mean, Travis Shaw is seeing some time. He saw some time against Notre Dame, which was good. I don't know why he's not playing more. I mean, I get it. I mean, size wise, he definitely has a size. He might not have the conditioning. He has the playmaking ability. I get that you can't do anything super duper sophisticated because he doesn't have the experience and probably the base knowledge. But I don't know why he's not throwing out there a lot more.
Yeah.
I can
I,
understand some other positions why you wouldn't play someone, but I don't know.
I need to go back and kind of watch what he's done, because I haven't rewatched their damn game yet. Um, yeah, if he's been effective and he's been able to push offensive linemen, man, put him over the center or the guard and just say, you push that pocket back.
Yeah.
Like, that is your job. Push the pocket back. Let's get some disruption and let some guys fly in. Like, I think Reva Hasek is really good too. And so, okay, so that's interesting standpoint. I mean, I think these players, they should be so motivated because they want to get to the NFL. And whatever you put on tape, especially against Notre Dame, like, that's what NFL people are looking at. So if you're getting dominated by offense line against Notre Dame, like, that's going to happen in the NFL. So these guys should be very intrinsically motivated to get a lot better, whether that's through practice and preparing to start next year or in these games. Like, you should be very motivated to perform because there's a lot of money to be made out there, but you could easily not be drafted and end up working at, I don't know, someplace else. All right, Don.
Becoming a substitute teacher.
Yeah, exactly. I was a substitute teacher once. All right. Anything else, Don?
No, I got to get going.
A lot on there. Don's gonna get out of here. Guys, appreciate Blue Shark Vodka, Johnny T-shirt. This is a scoop. Make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and subscribe to our YouTube page. We appreciate you listening.